It was a long and winding road to get back to College Station, and it took some phone calls, a bit of animosity, and a big backlash in social media. But Texas A&M has their next head coach. Is the right head coach? Let's go ahead and talk about it. If you are new here, welcome into the channel. My name is Cole Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football daily. So if this is the type of content you enjoy, make sure you smash that subscribe button down below. Leave a comment telling me your thoughts on the hiring of Mike Elko. Tell your friends, your family, your sister, your brothers. Thank you also to everybody who has joined the channel. But let's continue to climb. We're on the race to 1,000. Then to 5,000, then 10,000, and all the way to 100,000 and beyond. Tell everybody about this channel, and as always, let's continue to talk college football. By the way, if you want to give me a follow on social media, it's at Mr. Cole Thompson, the exact same as my YouTube handle. So when you subscribe to one, make sure you hit the subscribe button to the other. So Mike Elko of Duke is headed back to Texas A&M after a 2-year stint in Durham where he thrived, he prospered, he was phenomenal for what the Blue Devils needed. But before any of that even happened, there was a conversation about another coach being in the running for the job. After the game in Baton Rouge, it was reported that they were finalizing a deal with Kentucky's Mark Stoops. And Stoops, well, wasn't really the fit that fans wanted. And this is where it really comes back down to people saying where don't put the wagon before the horse. And conversations started internally with the Board of Regents. There was conversations going on in Lexington. And eventually we got to a point where there was such an uproar on Twitter, on Facebook, literally click on any post saying Mark Stoops' name with Texas A&M attached to it. And everyone had an opinion on Mark Stoops. So spoiler alert, I'm a proud card-carrying member of Mark Stoops is a really good coach, and I think that he would be great wherever he is because he's a program builder. Like, people don't understand that Kentucky is almost at that same level of Duke, or was for a very long time. Basketball school that didn't put an emphasis on football, where Bear Bryant, who actually left Kentucky to become the next head coach at Texas A&M, still was the all-time leader in wins for the Wildcats. That was 50 plus years ago, and Mark Stoops has finally surpassed that, and he's done it with lesser resources than most teams. He's culminated 2 10-win seasons, and he also has the ability to sell a program and punch out a lot of NFL talent. He's a developer. And so when the hire was supposed to be made, I actually thought this is a good hire. Now, with that being said, I think Mike Elko is a better one because Mike Elko does understand what it takes to win at Texas A&M and also what it takes for Texas A&M to be at the pinnacle of the top of eliteness. And to me, that's why you go ahead and make this deal. For Ross Bjork and for the entire A&M Board of Regents and for everybody out there, this should have been your first phone call. It should have been your second phone call, and it should have been your last phone call. Jeff Traylor is a phenomenal coach when it comes to understanding the state of Texas. Mike Elko is a phenomenal coach when it comes to understanding the 12th man. And that's really the difference between these two. And now he's on his way back to College Station. He hopefully will be able to revitalize the program in a way that has really been missing for the last several years. And now you have an opportunity to really set the tone in 2024 in the brand new SEC. The reason why Elko, I think, is a better fit than Mark Stoops is because of, one, not only does he understand what Texas A&M needs, he also helped build Texas A&M to what it could have been underneath Jimbo Fisher. So when Fisher was hired, he hired Elko from Notre Dame to become his defensive coordinator. And a lot of those players that now are either finding their way into the NFL or have been staples of this defense for the last few years, they were brought in by Mike Elko. And if not Elko, Elijah Robinson. And Robinson's going to stay on staff in some role, whether it be defensive coordinator, whether it be just assistant associate to the head coach. He's going to be on staff. So that's a good way to go ahead and set the notion of, hey, buy into what we're selling, stick around for another year. A&M is about ready to be riddled in the transfer portal if they did not get this hire right. And so now a lot of those kids that were already getting ready to punch their ticket and head to the transfer portal next month, they now have options and say, I know this guy. I understand what he's about. I understand the success that he's had. I'm going to stick around. And that might be enough for you to fight for a conference championship in 2024. That might be enough for you to make the college football playoff. The talent's there. The tenacity wasn't. That was the major difference between these two eras. Texas A&M has always had talent at its disposal. It's never had functionality and execution. And now they have that. And a lot of people out there are probably saying to yourself, well, what happens with Mike Elko now? Is he really the right fit? You know, A&M is supposed to be this top tier job. That's the thing about top tier jobs. You need the right fit, and you don't need to worry about culture. You don't need to worry about where you've been. Mike Elko's not from the state of Texas. Mike Elko's from New Jersey. He's only spent his time in the Midwest and the East Coast. He's been at Richmond and Fordham and Bowling Green and Notre Dame and Wake Forest. But he won, and he got a lot of results out of it, and his defenses were always pretty sound, and he added in a lot of talent. And he was a Burroughs Award semifinalist twice, once at A&M, once at Notre Dame. And he also knows how to go ahead and get the best out of players. Go ahead and look at Duke over the last 3 years of the David Cutcliffe era. I think David Cutcliffe was phenomenal. I think David Cutcliffe's offensive identity was a major factor of what led to both Eli and Peyton Manning getting drafted #1 overall. But he was kind of riding high off of a 2013 10-win season and a 2014 9-win season. Their last 3 years, the Blue Devils finished 10-25. Year one underneath Mike Elko, they got 9 wins. 9 wins is unheard of in Durham, North Carolina. Nobody gets 9 wins there. Steve Spurrier got 1 season of success before he hitched his wagon to go to Gainesville. Like, it doesn't happen there. And you look at the results, the team improved in all different areas of the field. They were 127th in scoring defense underneath David Cutcliffe's class. In his first year, Elko brought this defense to number 31. They finished with over 30 plus points per game and an average. That was top 50 in the country. The year before, they were averaging 22.2. Riley Leonard was getting notions of potentially being a actual NFL draft quarterback. And really, they played close against both Notre Dame and North Carolina to where you can make an argument if Riley Leonard doesn't get hurt in those games, maybe they end up finishing 9-3. Now, is a 9-3 coach better than a 7-5 coach? I think so. But at the same time, I'm looking at the guy that won 16 games in 2 years at a school that won 10 games in 3 years combined. And he did so with a third string quarterback. And his team hung around and they played hard and they played with grit and passion. And they had something that a lot of other teams really covet: tenacity. Texas A&M didn't need to make a splash. They needed to make a fight. They didn't need the flashy hire. They needed the fighting hire. They needed the guy that could come in right away, set the tone, and be a CEO, something that Jimbo Fisher never really could do. And you get that now with Elko. And Elko knows how to build his staff, and he knows how to build up relationships, and he knows what to target in the transfer portal and on the recruiting trail. And you don't have to worry about, well, what would he do if he was able to go ahead and work at a major institution? He's already done it. He's been there. He's been at Notre Dame, and he's been at Texas A&M. He knows what it's going to be like working with these resources. And so A&M now gets their guy. And that's the main point. I don't care that he's from New Jersey. I don't care if he likes the Yankees over the Rangers or if he's a Mets fan versus an Astros fan. Does he win? Does he build a program? Does he see consistent growth every single year? Check, check, check. That's the guy. That's the guy that Texas A&M needs. And everybody else out there, you realize that if you get the right coach, that ends up becoming a slam dunk hire. It's always a risk. Everywhere you go is a risk. But for Texas A&M, they went for flash and finesse over fight and over flight. That's what they did for years. Dennis Franchione, go ahead and get him from Alabama. Kevin Sumlin, go ahead and get him from Houston. Jimbo Fisher, national championship winner at Florida State. Go ahead and get him from Tallahassee to come to College Station and offer him a 10-year deal worth $75 million. Instead, now you get a guy who sees constant growth, consistent production, improvements on all areas of the field, and this is a slam dunk hire on paper. Now, on the field and production-wise, that's going to be 2 or 3 years to determine. Like Billy Napier was supposed to be a slam dunk hire, and he hasn't gone to a bowl game in the last 2 seasons. But A&M's also in a much different spot than Florida was when Billy Napier left Louisiana and when Mike Rauco left Duke. The bottom line is that right now, A&M got the guy they needed, they got the guy they wanted, and they got the guy who's going to be able to set the tone moving into the near future. And that future's bright. They have a shot of getting 9 wins next year. You look at their schedule with games against Bowling Green, and who knows what Notre Dame is going to be, what Auburn's going to be, what a school like maybe even Missouri is going to be with all the players that potentially leave for the NFL draft. There's a shot that 9 wins is plausible. And 9 wins year one for a first-year coach? Yeah, I would take that easily 10 times out of the week. And then if it's 10 wins, you're right in the running to fight for a college football playoff spot. Mike Elko didn't need to be the Dabo Sweeneys of the world or the Ryan Days of the world or even the Dan Lannings of the world. And by the way, just remember, When Ohio State hired Ryan Day, he was the offense coordinator and he was quote unquote born on third base. When Oklahoma hired Lincoln Riley, he was the offense coordinator that was quote unquote born on third base. There's not a lot of slam dunk hires that come alive that often. Like Lincoln Riley being a slam dunk hire for USC. Are we really going to say that right now after what we've seen in the last 2 years, especially after this past season, with the inability to make necessary adjustments to change your team for the better, to build off of what you had last season instead of regress? Are we really saying that right now Billy Napier is a slam dunk hire? The only slam dunk, like, oh my God, hire that we have seen since Nick Saban decided to come back from the NFL was Jim Harbaugh, who also came back from the NFL, and Brian Kelly leaving South Bend, Indiana to go to Baton Rouge. Oh, and by the way, in his first 2 years, if somehow LSU wins their bowl game, he'll have 20 wins. That'll be the most for an LSU coach in his first 2 seasons. I consider that pretty damn successful. So if Mike Elko can be that guy, a guy that continuously is making the necessary improvements to build a roster, build a coaching staff, and also culminate and not flounder on minuscule mistakes, that's the guy. That's the guy that Texas A&M needs. Every program becomes a tier 1 program because if someone sets the tone. And really, the reason why A&M became such a high-profile program was because of the money and the resources that were added in once they got Kevin Sumlin. And then they expanded once they got Jimbo Fisher. If Elko is that final piece, that guy that comes in and actually makes something out of that magic, then congratulations. That's what makes this a tier 1 job. That's what makes this a tier 1 hire. And I think in short time, we will see Elko actually be pretty damn successful. This was exactly what A&M needed to do. And yeah, was the pathway to get back to College Station a little bit rocky? Absolutely. Did people's opinions have to have a factor in all of this? Probably not. But at the end of the day, you got exactly what you needed. Program leader, guy who understands what Texas A&M is all about, and who gives a flying care in the world if he sounds like he's from New York. If he knows how to win football games, winning solves everything. Winning is the number one thing you want in culture. And Mike Elko, part of the reason why A&M was at least decent underneath Jimbo Fisher was because of Elko's ability to get the right kids in there. Big hire, big time win. A&M, I think, got this one 100% right. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.